We are joined now by Spencer Holbrook of Letterman Row. That is On3's Ohio State site, and the Buckeyes have had an interesting last few days. Spencer, the starting quarterback, Kyle McCord, in the transfer portal. Presumably the Buckeyes shopping for a new quarterback. So we talked to Pete Nakos yesterday, and he said that according to the sources he talked to, that McCord essentially was trying to get confirmation from Ohio State that he'd be the starting quarterback in 2024. Ryan Day wasn't quite ready to give that, and then McCord put his name in the portal. What is your understanding of how that situation went down?
I would say that's an accurate reading, Andy, of the situation and just what has transpired here in the last 48 hours. You know, ears started to perk up on Sunday when Ryan Day was non-committal to Kyle McCord as his 2024 starter, making sure that he kind of kept that open for a competition. And Kyle McCord has 1 year of eligibility remaining. So it's not a situation where he can probably afford to go in and just compete for the job and potentially not win it, and then he'd have to sit out and redshirt and then go another year. So he's got 1 more year to get to the NFL. Ryan Day has a pivotal season coming up next year. He can't just guarantee the job to somebody if he's not 100% sure that he's going to be the best option for Ohio State moving forward. And I think this is a mutual understanding that, hey, maybe it's time for a fresh start, just because, again, Kyle needs to play and needs to be the starter somewhere. That just couldn't be guaranteed to him at Ohio State. So I think Pete's probably got an accurate reading there.
So what does this mean for Ohio State now? Because Devin Brown is a redshirt freshman. He was the backup this year. Lincoln Kienholz is a freshman right now, who it sounds like they like quite a bit. Are they shopping for a veteran quarterback in the portal? Do they want to roll with who they have?
They are 100% shopping for a veteran quarterback. Now, is that a starting caliber quarterback, or is that a glorified GA who's going to guide the younger guys is the question. Last year, they
what Jack Tuttle was for Michigan, basically.
Yeah, or what Tristan Gebbia was this past year for Ohio State. From Oregon State, they brought him in knowing that you can play in an emergency role, but you're a glorified assistant. So that is the question here is there somebody in the portal who is better than Devin Brown and Lincoln Kienholz and Aon Noland, but also who is an upgrade from Kyle McCord? You can't take a guy who's basically the same as what you just had in Kyle McCord, because then you're running it back in year one with a guy when you could have ran it back in year two with a guy. So that's a big question for Ryan Day, who now has to answer that in the most pivotal year of his coaching career. Is Devin Brown good enough? Is Lincoln Kienholz good enough? Is it okay to take this into the spring and then put it out there that you need a quarterback after the spring cycle and you can potentially get a guy to come in after the spring? Or do you want to see what Devin Brown and Lincoln Kienholz can do in bowl practice and see if you've got something on your roster already? It's a pivotal decision for Ryan Day, one that he can't really wait on, but also one that he needs to be patient with to make sure he's making the right decision.
So who in the portal fits that description? So let's review what you just said. Needs to be an upgrade from Kyle McCord, needs to be better than Devin Brown and Lincoln Kienholz, and so much better that maybe a lack of eligibility going forward, isn't the deciding factor, because Lincoln Kienholz is a true freshman this year. Devin Brown was a redshirt freshman. So there's quite a bit of eligibility left with those guys. So are we talking about Riley Leonard from Duke, Dylan Gabriel maybe from Oklahoma, Cam Ward from Washington State? Who are we talking about, do you think?
Yeah, those are the names that everybody seems to want to link to Ohio State. But the question is, are those guys good enough to win a national championship? Ohio State doesn't want to compete for a national championship. It wants to win one. And Dylan Gabriel was good enough to get Oklahoma to a good spot this year, but not a great spot. Riley Leonard struggled with injuries, but also I think he's a better runner than he is a passer. And so I'm just not sure if he particularly fits exactly what Ryan Day wants in a quarterback, especially after the prolific passers that he's had in the program. Cam Ward, the flashes are, wow, NFL quarterback flashes. The down-to-down consistency I don't think is there right now, and maybe that could change if he got to Ohio State. But those three guys in particular, can they win you a national championship? I'm not sure the answer is yes. And so again, the standard is to win a national championship, beat Michigan, win the Big Ten, win a national title. They haven't lived up to that, and that's why it's so pivotal for Ryan Day to do that next year. So you have to start asking yourself which quarterback gives you the best chance now and into the future. And I'm just not sure if any of those three in particular are good enough to get the job done for you if you're Ryan Day.
As you can see, I am wearing my Roback Performance hoodie right now. It is the most comfortable garment I own. It is one of 5 performance hoodies that I rotate very frequently because I love them. They are soft. They are comfortable. They hold up great in the wash. They are great for a cold day, but on a warmer day, I roll up the sleeves and they feel great too. Also got polos, Q-zips, joggers, shorts, and now for the colder days, fleeces. Roback has it all. So go to roback.com, RHOBACK.com. Use that promo code STAPLES for 20% off your first order. Roback.com, promo code STAPLES for the most comfortable hoodie you will ever wear, and Q-zips, and polos, and joggers, and shorts. Roback.com, promo code STAPLES. One guy we haven't mentioned yet is Aon Noland, who is a commitment that Ohio State's had. He committed back in April. He's going to sign next week with the Buckeyes, or at least is expected to. He's from the Atlanta area, was a highly sought-after recruit. He's obviously a top 100 player in the country. Would he potentially have a chance?
I think it would be very difficult for Ohio State to hand the keys over to a true freshman in as pivotal of a season as next year will be. Because yes, they will probably make the 12-team playoff, whether you and I are playing quarterback because of the talent on the roster. But that's not the goal here. And Ryan Day knows that's not the goal. You have to beat Michigan and you have to go compete and probably try to be very close to winning a national championship. Ryan Day understands the stakes of the next 12 months with where he is and standing with Ohio State. So I'm not sure if handing the keys over to a true freshman is the correct call here. And I'm not thinking that's what they will do. Now, if he comes in and looks like Trevor Lawrence, then who's to say that he can't win the job eventually? But to say that he has a chance to win the starting quarterback job, I'm just not sure if that's in the cards right now. I would be happy to be wrong. And Ohio State would love to have a 3-year starter at quarterback from true freshman to junior year and then a first-round pick. I'm just not sure if that's in the cards for Ryan Day in such a pivotal offseason.
You know, thinking about what you just said with the talent on the roster, I do wonder if the idea of an opening at quarterback for Ohio State might draw somebody maybe we're not even talking about yet into the portal. Is that a possibility that maybe, because we know a lot of these guys reach out behind the scenes, players, coaches too, but players definitely reach out behind the scenes to get a gauge of who might be interested. I feel like this is one of those, if someone were to get an inkling that Ohio State is interested, then they might throw their name in the portal.
Yeah, I agree with that 100% because this is the Ohio State starting quarterback job. I think there's only one starting quarterback job in the country that competes with this, and it's the USC starting quarterback job. So it is one of the most sought after positions, no matter who you are, in the country. And so to think that Ohio State could put a help wanted sign out in front of the Woody Hayes Athletic Center and not draw attractive suitors, then that would be the wrong way of thinking because Ohio State will do that. If it has an opening, I'm sure players will want to take that opening. And so you wonder if the Buckeyes continue to string this out and make it known that they need a quarterback in the portal, if Devin Brown doesn't look great in bowl practice, if Lincoln Kienholz doesn't look like he's ready to take a step in year 2, fresh out of South Dakota from his freshman season coming in June, maybe he's not ready. The options would be probably more than just what you see in the transfer portal. And that's not meaning Ohio State would go tamper. Although there are probably a couple players in around the country that I would tamper for,
right?
That level of quarterback. But if it's known that Ohio State needs a quarterback, the options I think will be more than just what's in the transfer portal right now. There will be people who understand how big of a opportunity that would be for them to take that step.
Speaking of opportunities, how big of an opportunity is this bowl game against Missouri for Devin Brown? Because this is a Missouri team that is very excited to be here. This is not a case of a team that's like, oh, we're disappointed, everybody's going to opt out. Like, one, they have really good players who are definitely coming back next year, but also some of their older players probably play just because they've not been in this spot before.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that's one of the things that's got Ohio State fans all of a sudden excited about a Cotton Bowl when they weren't really excited is like the opportunity for different guys to be seen on the field who you just haven't seen. And Devin Brown leads the pack there. So much fanfare about Devin Brown, the number one player in On3's 2022 rankings, the guy that everybody thought could be next up if Kyle McCord took the step and made it to the NFL, and then Devin Brown could step in the next year, or Devin Brown could even beat him out this year, and it was a close competition. So. I know that Ohio State is excited to see what they have in 33. I know that the fan base is excited to see what they have in 33, but that doesn't mean that it's just going to click and magically appear as though he's going to be the next first-round guy. He's got to go earn it in bowl practice. And Lincoln Kienholz is a guy who came in, like I said, in June from South Dakota, really low-level football, and immediately impressed. Ohio State was blown away by the way Lincoln Kienholz attacked his first year on campus. So I would not sleep on that. But I do think that for Devin Brown, this is not a put up or shut up moment, because you're going to get to compete with whoever they bring in if they choose to bring in one, if you choose to stay. But I do believe that this is his moment to kind of seize that job and show everybody that he can be the next in the lineage of Ryan Day quarterbacks.
So let's pull back to the big picture here, because the last time you and I talked was right after the Michigan game. Ohio State had lost. You're trying to figure out, where does Ryan Day go from here? Where does the program go from here? What does it say that they don't have a succession plan at quarterback, or did not feel comfortable enough with the quarterback that played against Michigan a few weeks ago to say he's going to be the guy next year?
I think this you could look at it two ways. You could say the program's in a little bit of disarray and maybe they're at a crossroads here, or you can look at it and say Ryan Day is not really going to mess around anymore, and he's really going to be aggressive with the way that he attacks this offseason, because Kyle McCord was very good this year. He was not great, but he was very good. 3,100 yards, 24 touchdowns, just 6 interceptions. The magical drive against Notre Dame, coming up so close against Michigan, being 37 yards away from the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. When you put it that way, it makes it kind of go into perspective a little bit. But he didn't feel comfortable enough to just completely say, yeah, he's our starter, because we have to evaluate everything. He has said that. He said it on Sunday when we talked to him ad nauseum. You will evaluate everything when the season ends the way that it did. And that's what they're doing. They're evaluating the roster, the coaching staff, their personnel decisions, their coaching decisions, their philosophies. They are in full evaluation mode right now to make sure that they are maximizing Ohio State. And it's not about what's best for certain players. It's not about what's best for certain coaches. It's about what's best for Ohio State. And that's not even about Ryan Day. It's about Ohio State. And so I think that it shows a little bit of a reinvigoration for Ryan Day to kind of attack everything in a new way this offseason and make sure that they're maximizing the logo, maximizing the brand, and maximizing the program they have the keys to, because they're 3 in a row to Michigan can't become 4. And you have to make sure that you're maximizing everything, or else it will become 4. And when you go into an offseason with new members of the conference, you're going to Oregon next year, new college football playoff format, and you've got to replace a couple things on the offensive side of the ball. Like you have to make sure that you're maximizing it all. And I think that's what this signals for Ryan Day.
So let's talk about the other guys who jumped into the transfer portal. It's mostly guys who haven't played a lot or who had injury issues, but Julian Fleming's not one of those guys. He was the number 1 receiver recruit in the 2020 class. He has contributed at Ohio State, probably not at the level that he was expected to. I was thinking about who they've got. Jeremiah Smith coming in, obviously, is quite special. People are thinking he might be near the level of Marvin Harrison Jr. by the time he gets done at Ohio State. And then you've got younger players who stepped up this season that, Carnell Tate comes to mind. It feels like maybe it was going to be a squeeze in that receiver room.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Carnell Tate kind of split time with Julian Fleming a little bit this year, and made Julian's role a little lesser than it was in 2022. And that's okay, because Carnell's a really good player who's going to have a great career at Ohio State. But Julian put 4 years in at Ohio State. He's become one of the best blocking wide receivers that Ohio State has seen in a long time. He was a great teammate, great presence in the locker room. And now I think that it's just kind of time for Julian to find a new way to be productive at the college level and try to get to the NFL. And it might just be time for Ohio State to move on with the younger guys that it's got in the room who are really talented and go with that youth movement almost in the wide receiver room. Now, if Emeka Buuk comes back, then you've got your leader and a youth movement. You can kind of get the best of both worlds. But even if he doesn't, you've got that youth movement in the wide receiver room, a bunch of 5-star guys who are ready to take that next step. And Julian Fleming's ready to take the next step in his career to try to get to the NFL and be productive somewhere else, because the production just wasn't there this year. It could have been, but it really wasn't. And so I think it's good for Julian to get to almost spread his wings a little bit, find a new spot, try to be productive somewhere, and get to the next level.
What are the chances that Emeka Buuk comes back?
I think they're better than people on the outside are giving credit for right now. I think there's a decision to be made there with a lot of guys. The way that the Michigan game is sitting with some people is it's not sitting well. And so there's a lot of decisions to be made. Nobody's opted out of the bowl game just yet. I know Mayan Williams declared for the NFL draft. He was already declared out for the season. The fact that nobody immediately jumped on and said that they were opting out of the bowl game and sitting out and going straight to the NFL gives you reason to think that there's some decisions being made, conversations being had. I still wouldn't expect Marvin Harrison Jr. to be one of those guys who returns by any means, but there are a lot of decisions to be made, and I think number 2 is one of the biggest decisions on the roster, because if Emeka Buuk comes back, you're talking about a wide receiver core that has a leader and some 5-star guys who can take that next step under Emeka Buuk's leadership, and then you're talking about one of the best receiver groups in the country.
Now, you guys talked to Ryan Day recently, and he was talking about what he's looking for in the transfer portal, that they don't want to go willy-nilly into it, but they do want to be selective and they do want to be active. What are they shopping for most in the portal?
Well, I think it starts with quarterback, because even if you don't bring in a surefire starter, you're probably going to bring in another veteran like you did with Tristan Gebbia this year to be a glorified assistant coach, or another voice in that room who's seen things and done things at the college level. So I think you're talking about a quarterback one way or another. They're going to be aggressive on the offensive line, but I think every program in America wants offensive linemen from the transfer portal. That's not a secret. You're looking at tight end, where they lose Cade Stover, so you might want a veteran there. And then the defensive side, it's almost just selective upgrades. Wherever you think you can upgrade and not upset the apple cart in the room, I think you're going to look at it. If you're Ohio State on the defensive side, defensive tackle, you could lose Tyleik Williams and Mike Hall. Defensive end, you could lose JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer. If those guys decide to leave, you need depth there. Linebacker, you're losing both your starting linebackers. There could be a need for a veteran presence there. Safety, if it's the right fit, I think the Buckeyes would take one. But corner, maybe not so much, because they're pretty well set there. So I think it's defensive wide. Everywhere on that defense you can see some portal activity, and then on the offensive side, it's where everyone else wants to get better, right? It's the offensive line, and it's the potential of a talented quarterback who's just too good to pass up.
Well, it's amazing to me. I mean, it sounds like within the program there was rumbling that something might be happening with McCord, but it feels like outside it was just whoa. Were there signs in the days between the Michigan game and Monday that something was up?
Well, I think it's just, I'll start here. It's life at Ohio State, because everyone else looks at this and says 11-1. Again, you were 37 yards away in the final seconds against Michigan from winning the Big Ten and being the number 1 seed in the college football playoff. And the difference between being the number 1 seed and going to the Cotton Bowl for a consolation prize and your quarterback leaving was 37 yards on the road against the number 1 team in the country now. So the margins are way too fine for Ohio State to sit back and be comfortable with anything. And so when Ryan Day talked about the progress that Kyle McCord had made, but still wanted to see more from him, he talked about it all season. The progress was there, but you still want to see more. The progress is made, but there's still meat on that bone that you've got to get to. And then Sunday, it all kind of came to a head where he was asked straight up, is Kyle McCord your starter for 2024? That non-committal answer really started to get some people's ears perked up, and myself included. And you kind of wondered if something was coming. I didn't expect it to be the Monday morning at 6:45. The first day of the transfer portal. I'll be the first to admit that. A little flat-footed there, getting out of bed on Monday morning. But it is something that maybe in hindsight you could have seen coming, but it's still a pretty big shock to the system when you're 66% completion percentage quarterback who just led you to 11-1 record and so close to the college football playoff just decides that he's ready for a new chapter, and now you've got to go find your new quarterback. It's definitely a shock to the system.
So what's the timetable for the other players who are making decisions, and not just about the NFL, but making decisions about whether they're going to play in this Cotton Bowl?
Yeah, Ryan Day said that there was a team meeting Sunday night with the players to go over the bowl schedule and the bowl practice schedule that they were going to lay out. There's going to be ongoing meetings this week and into next week about what options are, not just for transfer portal guys, for NFL decisions, for bowl opt-outs. A lot of guys getting draft grades back here in the next couple of weeks, and that could determine some things. I think that it's just a fluid process, right? You've got to almost be patient with these guys, because if you start to push them, maybe you push them away to the NFL when you don't want to. If you start to push them too hard to, maybe it's your time to leave. Maybe guys want to, how that is. It's a push-pull.
Yeah.
So I think the Buckeyes got to be a little careful here. They're going to try to get some of these juniors to come back and go all in on a 2024 run. But that doesn't mean that everybody's going to reciprocate those feelings. And so I would say it's probably in the next week or two that you're going to start to hear some of these decisions be made.
Does it feel like Ohio State is in this position every year where there are lots of juniors who could potentially go pro? Does it feel like there could be more gone or more back than usual this year?
I think I would lean more toward the more back discussion. Like Donovan Jackson's a prime example, a guy who was a preseason All-American who kind of didn't play up to that standard this year along that offensive line. If he comes back, they'll bring 4 starters back on the offensive line. They'll have a new quarterback, of course, but Travion Henderson still doesn't have a full season under his belt of full health. Could he be a guy who thinks, hey, what could a full season do for my NFL draft stock? If he wants to improve that, could he come back behind that 4 offensive linemen and carry the load for Ohio State? Guy like Emeka Buuk, can he come back and be the leader? And then the defensive side, did you end the season on the note that you wanted to? Did you end your Ohio State career the way you wanted to? JT Tuimoloau, Ohio State means a lot to him. Jack Sawyer's a Central Ohio kid. It means a lot to him. Are those the kind of guys who make those decisions and kind of spearhead the movement that we saw in Ann Arbor last year? And we saw in Ann Arbor after the 2020 season where, Aiden Hutchinson led the charge in 2020, said enough is enough, comes back in 2021 and gets the job done for Michigan. Zach Zinter and Blake Corum did the same thing in 2022 for Michigan. It's not enough. We're coming back in 23. Could Ohio State see that again, see that type of movement this year? I'm not going to count it out, but it's also the talent level there with all of those guys. You're talking about some guys who could potentially be first-round picks all deciding to come back. That's a tough proposition, but it's not something that I'm completely ruling out, because the way that this season ended, I don't think anybody's satisfied.
It's going to be very interesting, and like you said earlier, that they're playing Missouri in the bowl game, and as excited as Missouri is about it, adds a layer of intrigue to this. So I can't wait to find out who's lining up to play for the Buckeyes against Missouri. Spencer, thank you so much.
Thanks, Andy. Always appreciate it.
Thank you so much for watching. Just a reminder, subscribe to this channel right here so you never miss an episode of Andy Staples on 3. And oh, by the way, watch all the other great videos on the On3 Sports YouTube channel.